A common question that I have received on my tech pathing videos is how might these ideas manifest when played out in a real game? Today, I thought I might take you through a short campaign and show you my tech choices at each step along the way, in a more relaxed manner than my more structured videos. This, I hope, will help my ideas be more readily illustrative when viewed in tandem with my prior work. Greetings, I am the composer of Strands. For this campaign, we will be playing as the Shroud Piercers, a Teachers of the Shroud and crowdsourcing empire. Hopefully, crowdsourcing will speed us through some of the early text so that we can see more of Shroud Piercer in action earlier. Before we get into the game, however, let's take a look at Shroud Piercer itself. I've loaded in as the Shroud Piercers. These are the techs that you would see on game start. It's important to think about your tier 1 techs before the game even begins, because you know which ones are available and you need 6 of them to unlock tier 2. Let's have a think about which 6 techs we might want to take from each area. From physics, we know that we'll want field modulation and global energy management. These are incredibly powerful economic techs, and it would be foolish not to think about taking them. We're definitely going to want quantum computing. Quantum computing obviously lets us scale our physics research so that we can get through text faster. We'll also want to take admin AI. Administrative AI is a prerequisite for self-evolving logic. Self-evolving logic being +1 research alternative and is in tier 2. So we'll definitely want admin AI before we unlock tier 2s. As for the remainder, it's a bit more up in the air. If we're not getting attacked early on, then there's less need to go for some of the military techs. However, blue lasers is quite good, it lets you take on space fauna better. It's also worth noting that improved deflectors are a prerequisite for cloaking, so we might want to take improved deflectors so that we can get cloaking in tier 2. Let's take a look at society next. In society, the standout really here is genome mapping. Genome mapping gives us plus 10% pop growth speed. Pop growth speed and the number of pops that you have becomes a clear bottleneck towards the mid-game. It's something that you want to start focusing on early on. And the more pops you have, the faster that you can get pops. Eco-simulation, which leads to food processing, aren't as necessary as global energy management, but they can still be a clear boost to your economy, primarily because it allows you to remove the pops that were farmers and move them onto different jobs earlier. Xenobiology is obviously very good for the same reason that quantum computing was, to scale your biology research. Fleet support is an important tech early on, primarily because you need a little more naval capacity. The naval capacity is needed so that you can get up to max power projection, that power projection needed to get the influence that you need to make more starbases. Alongside that, quantity of ships often matters more early on than quality of ships, and so fleet support can over double the number of ships you can field. Planetary unification acts as a prerequisite for a lot of important techs later on, so it's usually important to get this somewhere before you unlock tier 2 techs. As a specific for our empire, psionic theory is an interesting one. It's a tier 3 tech, so its base cost is 8,000. That probably means we don't want to get it right at game's start, but it is the only thing that gates us being able to take the psionic tradition tree. So once we feel like we can manage that cost, we can then get on with ascending our species. In engineering, the primary thing here is geothermal fracking and mineral purification behind it. If we don't get mineral purification now, it's going to severely hamper us later on. With engineering having so many techs to begin with, its chance of appearing is really quite low. So we're going to have to keep an eye out and hope that it appears early on. Other than that, you've got nanomechanics. Nanomechanics will speed us along with our engineering research, very, very necessary. And then you've got assembly patterns, which is a bit of a weird one. Assembly patterns is actually a pretty necessary boost to get, because early on you're often actually waiting on buildings to be built to move civilians into better jobs. So having that plus 25% planetary build speed is a very, very good buff. From there, the rest of the engineering techs are slightly less important. Ceramo metal materials is important as it gates some infrastructure techs, which is important to note. If you're going for robots, powered exoskeletons is necessary, but this is a spiritualist build, so that's not important for this one. I would highly recommend staying away from coil guns. Coil guns bifurcates, and that can really mess up your tech pathing. Space torpedoes, not so much, because frigates can be useful for taking out Leviathans, and it can be useful to get those frigates online quite early. Now that we've given some thought to what we might want to pursue, let's have a look in-game and see what the Shroud is going to bless us with. So, having loaded in, let's take a look and see what we get. From physics, at this juncture I would probably take quantum computing. Zero-G laboratories and fusion power aren't going to do much here, so let's take quantum computing. Similarly, for society, I don't really think we need planetary unification early on. Xenobiology, getting those labs online, is going to give us a much larger boost. And for engineering, look at that. Geothermal fracking, 25% chance to hit, we get it first time. This is going to mean that we probably get mineral purification on our next roll, which is going to be really nice to get it this early on. It's a shame that we didn't get field modulation, but that's the way that the deck rolls. So now I will see you when things change, probably when we unlock one of these techs. I have just finished my first round of techs. As you can see, I've got a bit of a tech imbalance here because of the crowdsourcing, but I have just found the Rubricator Relic World, which should help to remedy that. Looking at my tech choices, you can see that I've already got some permanent research alternatives to help thin the deck, and I decided to take Discovery for that +1 research alternative. I've rolled Field Modulation alongside Genome Mapping, which is rather nice. And as you can see, my engineering option is Mineral Purification as expected. Now I will see you again the next time something changes. Alas, not everything goes to plan. War has been declared. I feel confident in my ability to defend myself, however. I have some ships knocking around, and I picked up Doctrine Fleet support, so I should have the naval capacity to defend myself. This will likely, however, delay my settling of this relic world. We shall have peace. This war didn't end up being too difficult, just had to build up my fleet a bit more. I ended up using the sensors and focusing crystals edicts to make the fights a little easier. I would say that our empire is shaping up quite nicely, and soon enough we will start to ramp our science quite a lot. As you can see, we have reached tier 2 in physics and society, and we've managed to get self-evolving logic. So why don't we take a look at Shroud Piercer and see how that's looking. Usually I would update this tech by tech, but I thought I would show you what it is like to update the game state from the modifiers on the right. So now that I've updated the modifiers on the right, let's update with the techs that I have researched in game and all of the permanent research options that I have obtained. As you can see, engineering is lagging slightly behind due to crowdsourcing. However, it's still going rather well. We have managed to pick up only the techs that I actually wanted. Our physics pool is looking rather good as well. We managed to pick up the permanent research option for fusion power from some debris in the last war. And if we account for our +2 research alternatives, you can see that we actually have a decent chance of getting pretty much anything that we want at this moment. If we account for our previous options not appearing, you can see that Dyson Swarms have a 20% hit chance, so we should hopefully see this within a few rolls. As I have mentioned previously, when we look at society, things are slightly less good, but we still have a number of hits that we would like to see over time. Hopefully there are enough good techs that we'll never have a dead draw, i.e. one where we only see techs that we don't particularly want to appear. It's worth noting for all of physics, society and engineering that we only picked up techs that we wanted to from tier 1. This is not actually that unusual for me, so tier 1 tech pathing is actually quite stable. I suppose it is time for another update, as war has been declared once more. I would say that my empire is scaling up quite nicely. I've tried to trim my economy so that my margins are quite slim for everything except for research, unity, and to a certain degree alloys. I've managed to do this by limiting the jobs on a lot of my planets so that my pops auto-migrate over to my relic world, which, as you can see, I have used to balance my engineering research with respect to both physics and society. At this juncture, I am thinking that perhaps I will switch my physics research over to something a little more military-based so that I don't get rolled. With peace declared once more, I think we can wrap up reviewing this game. I would say my luck in this run has been fairly average, and yet I'm still feeling confident that I'm already outscaling the game, and I can be more than well prepared to take on the mid and end game crises. I have successfully fended off not one but 2 attacks, and I think I have an economy that's working quite well for me. And I would say I'm beginning to reach that phase of the game where techs are being completed fast enough that I think tech pathing is less of a burden. With that said, let's have a quick look at what Shroud Piercer looks like to see what my tech pools currently are. As you can see, there's quite a bit more bloat in the pools as compared to early game, especially in society. But as I've said, I believe I should be able to churn through the techs fast enough now that this shouldn't really matter, especially since I'll hit cloning in 7 months. The plan for the next few decades in game will be to carry on filling out my relic world and the Sea of Consciousness ocean planet, and then beeline the prerequisites for both mega engineering and ecomonopoli. Once I've done that, it should be pretty straightforward to start dismantling my enemy to the west, and then take on the galaxy at my leisure. I hope what I have shown today has been practically illustrative of what tech pathing actually looks like in a standard game. With that said, I shall bid you farewell for another week.